I have had some who were 19, 20 years old that I would treat more like my own son or daughter.
So there would be no reason for anyone, including Professor Hill, to assume that you were asserting and or you were taking on a role, any other role than an employer who was concerned about the work product, as opposed to what all of us have when young interns are from our states are sent down here that may work for this. We have unpaid interns in my office. And so a friend will say, can my son or daughter? And the first thing I say is, well, first of all, they can't come down unless I know where they're going to live. Is there a relative down here? I'm not taking responsibility for a 17-year-old kid to come to not just this city, any city, or so on. So we, all of us, I'm sure at one time or another, have called in young women or men who are in college in town, who are referred to us and work as interns and said, well, you know, how you doing in school? And now tell me what you're doing, and so on and so forth. There was no reason for Anita Hill. Was there any reason for Anita Hill to think that there was that kind of relationship that you had or concern that you had for her?
I can't think of a reason for her to think that. As I indicated, Senator, Mr. Chairman, there are any number of younger kids who have worked for me that I would be concerned about. Individuals who are not from the city and who don't understand the city, individuals who occupy themselves after work with other kids their age, again, without the guidance. I would be concerned about them not knowing the rules of the city, but certainly not in her case.
Now, you said yesterday something that I don't dispute. I don't know, so I can't dispute it. That when one of the members, and I forget who said it, that Professor Hill was a meek professional woman. She came across as a meek person, and you said, well, I call her anything but meek. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more today for me?
Well, the point that I was making, Senator, if you asked me to describe the Anita Hill who worked for me, meek would not be the word. She was very bright. She would argue for, particularly with the other special assistants, argue for her position, and if they're sometimes to a fault, and by that I simply mean that she would become entrenched in her own point of view and not understand the other point of view. And she was certainly capable of storming off and going to her office, and that happened on any number of occasions. So meek would not be the word. She was also a forceful debater on the issues that she was involved in.
Was there any change between the Anita Hill that first started to work for you at EEOC and the Anita Hill, I beg your pardon, at Education, and who eventually worked for you at EEOC, and just before she left, was it basically the same person, same modus operandi, same relationship relative to you professionally?
No, the relationship, as I indicated in my opening statement, Senator, Mr. Chairman, changed primarily because my job changed, and the staff went from those two professionals to maybe 10, 12, 15 professionals, with a chief of staff, office directors of 14, I think, individuals, a chief of staff being in charge of my personal staff as opposed to the staff having direct access. So even the special assistants couldn't see me on an as-available basis. Gotcha. The chief of staff could see me on that basis, but she could not.
When you saw her, though, was it essentially the same professional woman in terms of her professionality? Did she seem more confident, less calm? Was there any difference in the Anita Hill, not necessarily in terms of access, but the professional lawyer, Anita Hill, who worked for Clarence Thomas? Was she the same woman in terms of when you were with her?
Senator, I can't. All I can say is this, that I can't tell you that there was a specific change. What I can say is that she was having more of a difficulty. I thought, from my perspective, she was having more difficulty in the role at EEOC because there were so many more staffers, and there was so many different levels of communications, for example, or responsibilities. For example, I would rely on individuals with more experience to work on projects that were of great significance to me. There were routine assignments that would be what I would call grunt work, much more than we had at education. There was sort of a pecking order. And I don't think that she, in that role at EEOC, was very high on the pecking order because of experience.
Well, you said at your very first, almost your first utterance yesterday when you first appeared, that you can't imagine what you could have said that could have caused Anita Hill to say what she has said, but if there was anything she ever misunderstood, I'm paraphrasing, I don't know this exact quote, then you're sorry. Now let me ask you this. On its face, that seems to me to be a completely reasonable statement for one to make. I don't think it, speak for myself, things that I might say, jokes that I might tell with a male trusted aide that I've been with for 20 years might not be the same joke that I'd be willing to tell with the female members of my staff. And I suspect that were I a woman, there are certain things that I could say to the females on my staff that I couldn't say to the males on my staff. Now, in groping to trying to figure out how we got to where we are in terms of this discrepancy, among the men on your staff, did you ever kid about, make reference to, say you saw, deal with any of the subjects that Anita Hill says you dealt with, spoke to, mentioned to her?
No. Let me go back a second. There are a couple of comments I'd like to make about that. I attempted to conduct myself in a way with my staff so that there were no jokes that I would listen to or tell to men that I could not listen to or tell to women. There were no jokes that I found acceptable that I could not listen to or tell to any ethnic group. The other thing, when I was speaking about on something I may have missed, I was talking about a kind of an insensitivity. Let me give you an example.
That's what I'm trying
and it
to
doesn't
drive at.
mean mean-spirited, and it's not in the area that we're talking about. A former member of your staff came to work for me in 1982, Barbara Paris.
One of the best people ever worked for me.
That's right. She's one of the best who's ever worked with me and who is familiar with me.
She's made me aware of just how familiar she is.
That's right. She understands why I feel so strongly about being here. The Barbara Paris, my offices were on the 5th floor. The elevator panel of buttons was at a level that Barbara Paris could not reach because she's a short person. She did not tell me. I was insensitive to it because I could reach the panel. So someone had to inform me that she was climbing up 4 or 5 flights of stairs because she couldn't reach the panels. It is that kind of insensitivity, oversight. And I made it a point to tell my staffers, if I do something, let me know what it is. If you see something, tell me what it is so we can correct it.